Namaste, everyone, and welcome to this part 2 video of the analysis of Prince Harry's chart, the Jyotish Vedic astrological analysis. I have created a previous video on Prince Harry's chart that you may watch. The link is in the description, and I encourage you to watch that first before watching this video because I will be building the analysis from the first part. Before we begin, please join me in reciting Om Gurave Nama 3 times. Om Gurave Nama. Om Gurave Nama. Om Gurave Nama. Welcome, and my name is Justin. I'm a Vedic astrologer, and I have been studying Vedic astrology for 20 years, and more recently with my teachers, Pandit Sanjay Rath and Sarbani Rath. So here is the astrological birth chart of Prince Harry. And I have spoken about this chart in my last video, showing you the profoundly important yogas in the chart, the Samkhya Yoga of Dhamma Yoga, six signs housing all the planets, and how Samkhya Yoga is matched with very important Hamsa Mahapurusha Yoga involving Jupiter. Samkhya Yoga, if you see my video, my last video, the Samkhya Yoga controlling planet is Jupiter. Jupiter is also the Lagnesh, which is also in Hamsa Mahapurusha Yoga. So the intersection of those two yogas creates a very powerful effect, which can be understood as the activation of all the yogas in the chart. When the Samkhya Yoga planet is powerful and connected, it activates all the other yogas in the chart. And I have mentioned how significant it is that so many of the planets have high levels of dignity. Rahu, exaltation; Saturn, exaltation; Mars and Ketu in Swakshetra in their own sign; Sun in its own sign; Jupiter in its own sign. These give tremendous amount of stability in the chart. Now, there is one planet that is very interesting. I mean, they're all interesting, but there's one planet in particular that requires a bit more attention. I have spoken about Venus in part 1, and what is characteristic about Venus in this chart is that it is debilitated. Venus in Virgo is debilitated. Venus is not happy in Virgo, right? Because Venus rules Libra, and Venus rules the natural 7th house of the natural zodiac. It doesn't want to be in the 12th from the 7th, because the 12th from the 7th is the loss of the qualities of the 7th house, the 7th house of relationship, of marriage, and so on. So the natural 6th house is Virgo, which is 12th from the 7th, and this is where Venus gets debilitated. Venus is not happy in Virgo. Venus is very happy in Pisces, right? We know Venus is exalted in Pisces, and Venus is debilitated in Virgo. So in this chart, this person, Prince Harry, has a debilitated Venus. So first of all, what that means generally is that the wife assuming, heterosexual male, the wife of the chart of Prince Harry is going to suffer because Venus is debilitated in his chart. Similarly, if a woman has a debilitated Jupiter or a severely afflicted Jupiter, it is very, very likely that the husband will suffer or bring suffering. So it could be to suffer or bring suffering. Maybe one feels very unhappy, one feels very unsatisfied, one is not interested in being in the role. And it's interesting when you read about Prince Harry, you listen to him speak, he talks about searching for a partner, a suitable partner, and there were many contenders. And these contenders, these women, were interested initially, but never really went very far with Harry in terms of exploring a full blown relationship, feeling a bit uneasy about being in the role of of his partner and being in the spotlight and so on. But what, from an astrological perspective, from a Jyotish perspective, we might see is that what they're actually feeling in the chart is a debilitated Venus. So when they get near Prince Harry, what they feel is that debilitation of Venus that is not appealing. There is something that pushes the women away. And you might argue, I mean, it's a theory that the debilitation of Venus is something that brings a kind of, anxiety to the potential spouse. So his current wife is his primary relationship. He'd not been married before. This is his first marriage, and likely his first very serious relationship where the spouse has committed, um, with all of their, with their life and so on. Now, there is another uh, very unfortunate aspect to Venus, which is that Venus is in Papakatari Yoga, meaning it is hemmed between Saturn on the one side and the Sun on the other. So Venus is really trapped because when when it is in Papakatari Yoga, it is pressurized. It feels like it is being crowded out. It is it is surrounded by malefics. And by the way, Mercury also becomes malefic by association. Mercury can go either way. If Mercury is conjoined benefic planets, then it behaves in a benefic way. If Mercury is conjoined malefic planets, it joins the malefic energy, becomes malefic. So Mercury is malleable, influenceable, and sort of goes along with the crowd. And so here we have a situation where Venus is surrounded by enemy, and you might even argue it does extend. There is a Mars Ketu energy after. So malefic, malefic, malefic. Okay, so this is a complex yoga actually, something that needs to be unpacked even further, and maybe that needs to continue in another video. But what I want to say, which is very interesting here, is that Venus is simultaneously very afflicted and also at the same time has a profoundly auspicious cancellation of its debility. And this is what's so interesting when you examine the life of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. You see that um, before marriage, Meghan Markle was living a sort of a kind of a carefree life, a happy-go-lucky life, having a nice job, having a nice kind of group of friends, traveling, enjoying life, and then gets married to Harry and ends up in a situation that, as in her own words, caused her to contemplate taking her life. That's how serious the situation became. So, what's happening there is that she is being affected by the simultaneous debilitated Venus that is also in this Papakatara yoga, this hemming effect. So, what that does is it creates a huge amount of unhappiness and tension and downfall, a reputational downfall. Um, Aggression. So Saturn and the Sun, Mars, Ketu. There's a lot of aggression directed there as well. Rahu also has Rashi Dristi on Venus. So here you have all this malefic influence on Venus, which is very, uh, very difficult, and she experienced that. But now, what's interesting that at the same time, Venus has a cancellation of its debility because the Lord of its exaltation, so Venus exalts in Pisces. So the rule is that if the Lord of the exaltation sign is placed in a Kendra in 1, 4, 7, or 10, then the debility is canceled. And Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. So Venus exalts in Pisces, right? Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter's in the first house, and Jupiter is this amazing Hamsa Purusha Yoga. So it's not only just simply canceled, but it's greatly canceled. Now, what does that mean? That's Nicha Bhanga Raja Yoga. That's Nicha Bhanga Raja Yoga, the cancellation of debility. So what does that mean? Well, it means that that debilitation, that downfall, it it's not like it doesn't happen. It happens, but there is an uprising that happens after the fact. And look, this is exactly what has happened in their case. In the early part of their marriage, she experienced um, this psychological downfall, you know, depression to the point where she had contemplated suicide. And then they left that environment, they moved, and life has become better. They've gotten back on their feet. She's gotten back on her feet, and they are now moving in a direction that requires a lot of courage. And this courage comes from the cancellation of debility. In other words, Nichabanga Raja Yoga. That courage, which is above and beyond the average kind of courage that people have, like everyday people. When somebody has Nichabanga Raja Yoga, when, in other words, cancellation of a debilitated planet, their their abilities to endure, survive, and thrive are greater. And why is that? It's because the debility creates a kind of suffering that pushes people into a state of humility. You have to survive that suffering, you have to accept certain realities and even become somewhat humble to them. And then when the debility is canceled, you have a tremendous amount of support from the cancellation of the debility. So the combination of the humility that comes from the debilitation and the cancellation, which gives a tremendous amount of energy of resilience, this is this this is exemplified in Nichabanga Raja Yoga, and it's exemplified in their chart. There's an idea of, if you might have heard of this idea of post-traumatic growth, that's like Nichabanga Raja Yoga. post-traumatic growth where you have a downfall and you go to a very dark place, but from that you grow and you become much stronger than you would ever have been able to become had you not had that affliction. So this is what's happening. Now, still there is attack. There is still uh, a very negative description of Meghan Markle in the British press, in some, not all, but in some certain pockets. But you see this malefic aspect of the Papakartara yoga is still there. It's still there, but the cancellation of debility is there, and also Jupiter has Rashi dristi on Venus. So Jupiter is protecting Venus. Jupiter is Harry. Jupiter also represents the husband generally, but Jupiter is Harry's Lagnesh, and it is shining its dristi on Venus. So, uh, so, so there is protection there, and in a way, you can think of it this way: that there is the curse of Venus in Harry's chart. In other words, any woman that becomes Harry's partner is going to have to suffer this affliction. The woman has inherited Harry's curse of Venus. But what he is doing is he is rectifying through his own actions and standing up, speaking the truth. He is rectifying this curse. So he is, not that he's studying Jyotish, I don't expect, but he is creating a remedial measure by his actions to defend his wife, to speak the truth, to call out lies and corruption, and all the negative, all the lies and negative press and so on. And and so over time, what will happen is this curse will ease because they have gone through it. They have been through it. Now, somebody might say, well, wait a minute. Why are you saying Venus when actually, if you look at Harry's chart, the seventh house is Gemini, right? The seventh house is Gemini. And this is where you find the partner. This is where you find the spouse. Yes, that is true. That's absolutely true. The seventh house is Gemini. And Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is here in the ninth house. So why am I talking about Venus? Venus is the natural karaka for the wife in a man's chart, just as Jupiter is a natural karaka for husband in a woman's chart. And we have to look at the natural karakas. This is what my guru Sanjay Rath has taught so clearly, that the Naisargika karaka, the natural karakas, they have to be read uh, along with the lordship of houses. We often overemphasize the lordship of houses without acknowledging the karakas. So here we have this amazing chart. It's just so interesting to have all of the planets in exaltation, in Svakshetra, and in Nichabanga Raja Yoga. So something to take stock of. Now, I'm going to leave you, final point here is that in Jyotish, we expect that we will see the compatibility of couples in the chart comparison between the two, between the spouse one and the spouse two. So in this story, in this love story between Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, uh, as it turns out, Harry was the one that found her online on social media, and sought her out, and was drawn to her. Now, people might say, why her? And there's so many eligible women that he could have picked, and he picked her. What was it about her? So our starting point is to assume that when you look at the charts, when you look at his chart and her chart, there you will see the relationship. The way we do that is by looking at the Navamsha chart. The Navamsha chart of Harry should match either the Navamsha chart of Megan or the Rashi chart, so the D1 or the D9. And so that is something that we can look at. And in my next video, I will show you that. I will show you the how we can see Megan in Harry's chart and how we can see Harry in Megan's chart. Namaste.